Salvete omnes, ego sum Magister Sullivan, back again for the next part of our AP syllabus, Caesar Book 4, Chapter 32, where Caesar reacts to a sudden threat. So we picked it up last time where Caesar is stranded in Britain. The Britons, the chieftains, kind of understand that Caesar's in trouble, and so they're going to try to press their advantage. So let's get at it. So while these things are born or are carried out with the with with one with one legion having been sent, which is the custom to forage or to find grain, right, or to get grain. So this thing is called a supine. We'll talk a little bit about it in class, but it's not that big of a thing. It kind of There's one in the last video, and Virgil's used it a bunch of times. Sometimes there's a U here, or sometimes it's an Right, so this is the accusative supine, and usually they're to show purpose, in which case they translate to find grain or to get grain. And then so this is referring to all the way to Legione, which was being called the seventh, so the seventh legion, right? Okay, actually, it's going with quae, which is probably best. And so, with again another ablative absolute. So, with not any suspicion of war having been alleged at this time, uh, then cum here is again it's going to be either when, since, although, or while. So maybe here while is better. So while part, or we could say some of the men were remaining in the fields, and another part, and we could probably understand that homonym or the so some of the men, and then the rest of the men, or part of the men again, still come repeatedly, or come and go, or come into camp again and again and again, again into camp. And so we have those ones who were in station, or at their stations, before or in front of the gates of the camp. They announced, this is our main verb, they announced to Caesar. So this ending is dative, so to Caesar. And here's going to be this is what we're going to call an indirect, most likely an indirect statement. So they announced to Caesar that there was, or a large amount of dust, or the greater amount of dust, um, which is carried, or which would, or was being carried, or which a larger than amount which was accustomed to be carried, is seen, or I'm sorry, was seen. This is our infinitive. So on its own, videre would be translated as to be seen. But here, since it's indirect statement, we're going to translate it as was being seen in this part. So again, which the legion, iter fecisset, had traveled or had marched into this part, or I'm sorry, into which part the legion had traveled or had marched. So when we're iter fecisset, we've seen this before, but when we see iter facio or iter facere, right, it's with troops, it's going to be to march. Otherwise, it's to travel, or literally it's to make a journey. All right, but anyway, there's a large amount of commotion, more so than is accustomed. All right, and this has been reported to Caesar. Okay. A couple quick notes, because this is an indirect statement and we have a clause within the indirect statement. This verb, or most verbs, are in the subjunctive. So this is a imperfect subjunctive, and this is a pluperfect subjunctive, right? Because we have isset, right? Okay. So Caesar, having been suspicious, or having been suspicious of that which there was, um, something or some new beginning of a plan by the barbarians was formed. We're going to go all the way to useat here to find our head verb or our main verb. And then from there, remember, useat takes an infinitive phrase. So um, here is one such infinitive phrase. We'll just bracket these. Sorry. And then we have another infinitive phrase governed or started by useat, and then another one, and then another one, right? So if we see that, there's subsequi, here's succedere, here's armari, right? And also we have proficisci, right? So he, Caesar, ordered his cohorts, and a cohort is a group of about 400 troops, uh, which were at station, or were on their stations, to himself, or with himself, or to set out with him into this part. Um, Again, and he said he orders, um, out of the rest, or from the rest, or from the remaining, two cohortes to post up, or to take their spots, to take their positions. And he orders the rest to be armed and immediately to follow him. All right, so when he had set forth, um, with a longer by little, or with a little, this is called an ablative degree of difference, from the camps, or from the camp, or out of the camp. Here's our head verb. We have to go all the way down here to anid madvertit. He turns his attention, or he noticed that his men, or their men, or his men, were pressed by the enemy, and um, again, to sustain, to keep, or to keep or to sustain that weekly, and um, here we have an ablative absolute. So with the legion having been, with the legion having been crowded from or out of all of these parts, um, their own, um, to be thrown, or the weapons. You notice the weapons were being thrown. For probably because all, or with all the grain having been, so with all the grain having been sent down, having been plowed, having been um, reaped from the rest of the parts, one part, or there was one part left. So, and so the enemy, having been suspicious or having been um, plotting ahead, that are planning ahead that our men would come here. So again, the enemy having plotted ahead, having suspected that our men, our troops, um, would come, Venturos, future active infinitive, to this spot at night. They had hidden themselves in the woods. Then um, we go here. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to go to first Adorti, which is a um, so it's going. They having attacked our men, having been scattered. Our scattered men, um, and again, so this is going to go with this. Suddenly, having been busy in the reaping, so this is a gerund. And again, we have with their arms having been put down. So we could do it this way too. So we have then having attacked our our men dispersed, our men scattered, with their arms or weapons having been put down, um, and again having been busy in the reaping, of the grain. Paucis interfectis, with few having been killed, um, they had put the rest of our men into confusion, or they had put the rest of our men into uncertain ranks, and at the same time, they had surrounded us or our men, right, or the rest of our men, with um, the cavalry and their charioteers. All right, so that is Caesar 4.32. Sorry, I get a little choppy in here. But we learn that Caesar's men are out in the fields and they're harvesting or reaping the grain to bring back into their camps, and they're doing this on a continued basis. But the Britons seize upon this information, understand where they're going to be, hide themselves in the woods at night, and attack them unaware and with their arms having been put down, right, and completely surround them. So it's not a good time to be in Caesar's army, but we'll see where it goes from here. So it puts Caesar in a bad spot, but let's see if he overcomes it. All right, Omnes. Have a good night. Take care. Curate ut valeatis.